I'm Valerie, 28 years old, living in the bustling heart of New York City. My life is a blend of graphic design, coffee with friends, and a constant search for inspiration. I never imagined a Friday night would change everything. Sophia and David, my best friends, invited me to a gala. It's an adoption charity event, they told me. With an excitement I didn't quite share, their enthusiasm felt a little forced, almost theatrical. I'm not usually one for formal events, but they insisted. It'll be fun, Valerie, you'll meet important people, Sophia promised. Her words sounded like an empty promise, like many others before. We arrived at a luxurious event hall in Manhattan, glowing with soft lights and elegant floral arrangements. The atmosphere was opulent, filled with elegantly dressed people and calculated smiles. I felt like a fish out of water. My dress, though nice, seemed modest next to the designer outfits. Soft music filled the air, mixing with the murmur of sophisticated conversations. I tried to relax, but discomfort clung to me. Sophia nudged me. Look at all these people, Valerie. It's an opportunity. Her voice was an excited whisper, almost as if she were plotting something. David, beside her, just smiled enigmatically. I wondered why they were so keen on me attending. Usually my plans with them were more casual, movie nights or informal dinners. This gala was a completely different world. People were toasting with champagne flutes, and the scent of expensive perfume wafted through the air. I felt observed. Though it was probably just my imagination, my friends led me to a less crowded corner. We're going to introduce you to some people, David said. But his eyes sparkled with an unusual mischief. The feeling that something was wrong intensified. It was an intuition, a pang in my stomach. They introduced me to a couple of people, quickly exchanging some trivial phrases. Then, Sophia looked at me with a forced smile. Let's go get some drinks, Valerie, we'll be right back, she said, pulling David along. Her eyes, however, darted towards the exit, and I noticed a knowing glance between them. Something in their body language made me doubt. It was as if they were about to execute a plan. I was left alone, with a glass of water in my hand, watching them walk away. I waited a few minutes, expecting to see them return with the promised drinks. Time, however, began to stretch uncomfortably. People continued chatting around me. Oblivious to my growing anxiety, I felt exposed, as if everyone could see my solitude. In the midst of the crowd, the music, once soft, now sounded like a mockery. A pang of discomfort turned into a cold certainty. They had left me. It wasn't just a delay. It was deliberate. The prank had begun, and I was a target. I took a deep breath, trying to maintain my composure. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me upset. But inside, a mix of anger and humiliation began to bubble. Minutes stretched into an eternity. My phone screen remained dark, a reflection of my growing despair. The silence from my friends was deafening. The embarrassment had transformed into a chilling anger. It was no longer just humiliation, it was betrayal, the feeling of being a toy in their hands, disposable and expendable. I remembered the last time Sophia had told me I love you. Were those words as empty as her promise to return with drinks? Doubt gnawed at my trust in them and in myself. My hands trembled slightly, but I clenched them to maintain composure. I didn't want anyone to notice my distress. Pretending everything was fine was my only defense at that moment. The murmur of conversations around me turned into an irritating hum. Every laugh, every toast, echoed like a reminder of their cruelty. I felt trapped in a golden cage of my own humiliation. I moved towards the periphery of the hall, seeking a corner where I could breathe. I needed a moment to process the magnitude of their disregard. It was more than a prank. It was a message that they didn't value me, that my feelings didn't matter. The realization hit me with the force of a wave. They were my friends, but they were not my allies. My eyes scanned the crowd, looking for an exit, a kind face, anything to pull me out of this nightmare. But everyone seemed absorbed in their own bubbles of happiness. I stopped by a large window, observing the city lights. They were a reminder that the world kept turning, oblivious to my small personal drama. A sense of insignificance washed over me. A waiter passed by offering canapes, and I took one, just to have something to do with my hands. My thoughts raced, trying to find a reason, a logic behind my friend's cruelty. Was it a test, an attempt to make me stronger? The idea seemed ridiculous. It was simply a cruel prank, designed for their own amusement, regardless of my feelings. The music played on, and people continued to socialize. I was a ghost at the party, present but invisible, my existence reduced to waiting for a return that never came. I felt a pang of loneliness deeper than the humiliation. It was the solitude of knowing that the people you trusted could be so heartless. A bitter and painful revelation. But amidst that bitterness, a small voice inside me began to speak. A voice telling me that this night, though painful, would not define me. That there was something beyond this prank. Time stretched each second. A needle in my skin, my phone screen remained dark, a reflection of my growing despair. The silence from my friends was deafening. The embarrassment had transformed into a chilling anger. It was no longer just humiliation, it was betrayal. The feeling of being a toy in their hands, disposable and expendable. I remembered the last time Sophia had told me I love you. Were those words as empty as her promise to return with drinks? Doubt gnawed my trust in them and in myself. My hands trembled slightly, but I clenched them to maintain composure. I didn't want anyone to notice my distress. Pretending everything was fine was my only defense at that moment. The murmur of conversations around me turned into an irritating hum. Every laugh, every toast echoed like a reminder of their cruelty. I felt trapped in an alien circus. I moved towards the periphery of the hall, seeking a corner where I could breathe. I needed a moment to process the magnitude of their disregard. It was more than a prank, it was a message that they didn't value me. That my feelings didn't matter. The realization hit me with the force of a wave. They were my friends, but they were not my allies. My eyes scanned the crowd, looking for an exit. A kind face, anything to pull me out of this nightmare. But everyone seemed absorbed in their own bubbles of happiness. I stopped by a large window, observing the city lights. They were a reminder that the world kept turning. Oblivious to my small personal drama, a sense of insignificance washed over me. A waiter approached, offering me another drink. I politely declined. My throat was dry, but not from thirst. It was the dryness of disappointment, of bitterness. My mind raced to my apartment, my sanctuary. I wanted to disappear from there, to return to my safe space where I didn't have to pretend. But I knew running wouldn't solve anything. The anger began to transform into a cold determination. I wouldn't leave, I would stay, and I would face them. I would show them they couldn't break me so easily. A rudimentary plan began to form in my mind. I would observe, I would listen. Perhaps I could find a way to teach them a lesson, to turn the prank back on them. But deep down, I knew the real lesson wasn't for them, but for me. A lesson about friendship, trust, and the importance of valuing myself. The night was still young, and the party continued, and I, Valerie, was not a victim. I was an observer and perhaps an involuntary participant in a much larger game. I decided I wouldn't stand still like a statue of humiliation. I began to move through the hall, head held high, pretending to search for someone in the crowd. It was my mask of normalcy. My eyes scanned the faces, lingering on the details, a woman's laugh, a businessman's seriousness, the elegance of an elderly couple. I tried to distract myself from my own situation. Suddenly, my gaze stopped. In the center of the hall, near the podium, there was a woman. She was older, in her 60s, with impeccably styled silver hair and a deep blue gown. There was something about her, a strange familiarity, that made me pause. The woman was staring at me intently, her dark eyes piercing mine with unusual intensity. Her expression was hard to decipher. It wasn't a look of judgment, nor simple curiosity. It was something deeper, as if she recognized me, or as if she were expecting something from me. I felt a shiver run down my spine. My mind searched through my memories, trying to place her. Had I seen her before in an event, a magazine? The feeling of knowing her was overwhelming, but I couldn't put a name to it. She took a small step towards me, and then another. My heart began to beat faster. Was she one of the gala organizers? Perhaps someone who knew Sophia and David? Her smile was enigmatic, a mix of warmth and a guarded secret. It wasn't the forced smile of the guests, but something genuine, almost maternal. I felt inexplicably drawn to her. I stood firm, not breaking eye contact. It was as if an invisible force connected us in that moment. The music, the murmur of the crowd, everything faded, leaving only the two of us. She approached slowly, each step deliberate, as if she didn't want to startle me. Her presence was imposing, yet comforting. It was a contradiction that intrigued me. My friends, the prank, the humiliation, all seemed to fade into the background. This woman, with her penetrating gaze, had become the sole focus of my attention. When she was just a few feet away, she extended a hand, not to greet, but as a gesture of welcome. "Hello, Valerie," she said, her voice soft but firm, as if she had known me all my life. My name on her lips sounded so natural, so right. I was surprised she knew who I was. Was she one of the people Sophia and David had fleetingly introduced me to? No, I didn't think so. There was something deeper in her gaze, something that went beyond a simple introduction. It was as if she had been waiting for me, as if our meeting was inevitable. In that moment, the party ceased to be just a place of humiliation. It became a stage, and this woman, Eleanor, was a key piece in a puzzle that was just beginning to form. The woman introduced herself with a kind smile. "I'm Eleanor Vance," she said, her voice resonating with a gentle authority. "I'm one of the organizers of this charity gala." Her gaze remained fixed on me, with a warmth that disarmed me. "Are you enjoying the evening, Valerie? She asked, as if she truly cared about my answer. I felt a little embarrassed. I stammered a reply. Yes. Of course, my friends. They're in the restroom. The lie came easily. But I felt the heat in my cheeks. I didn't want to admit my situation. Eleanor nodded, as if she understood more than I was saying. I see. Sometimes, these galas can be a bit overwhelming. Her understanding made me feel a little less exposed. She offered me a glass of champagne from a nearby tray, then invited me to sit at an elegant round table. Please, join me. There's much to see and hear tonight. I sat down, grateful for the reprieve. The chair was comfortable, and the table was slightly set apart from the main bustle. It was a small oasis in the middle of the party. The conversation flowed with surprising ease. Eleanor didn't make me feel uncomfortable, nor did she pressure me with questions. She spoke about the Foundation's mission, the success stories of adoptions. I listened intently, noting her passion and dedication. She was an inspiring woman with a strong and serene presence. I wondered how someone so genuine fit into this world of appearances. At one point, she asked me about my work, my life in New York City. I answered cautiously, without going into too much detail. I didn't want to reveal my vulnerability. She listened attentively, nodding occasionally. Her eyes didn't judge me. They just observed me with benevolent curiosity. It was a strange yet comforting feeling. What you do is admirable, Valerie, she said, referring to my work as a graphic designer. Creating beauty and communication is a valuable art. Her words made me feel seen, appreciated. The conversation drifted to personal adoption stories. Eleanor shared some touching anecdotes, speaking of the bravery of birth mothers and the joy of adoptive families. I felt a strange connection to the topic. Even though adoption had never been a part of my life, it was as if every story Eleanor told resonated deep within me. My friend's prank faded from my mind, replaced by this unexpected conversation. Eleanor had not only rescued me from discomfort, but was opening up a new perspective for me. The night, which had begun with humiliation, was now taking an unexpected turn. This encounter with Eleanor wasn't a coincidence. I felt there was a greater purpose, still hidden from me. Eleanor continued to speak about the complexity and beauty of adoption. It's not just a legal act, she explained. It's a connection of souls, a decision of love that transcends time. Her words were profound, laden with emotion. She mentioned that some people came to these events for unexpected reasons, seeking closure or answers to old questions. I felt her words had a double meaning, a veiled reference I couldn't decipher. Was she talking about me? Or was it just a general observation about the gala attendees? Every person here has a story, Eleanor said, her gaze sweeping the room. Some are of hope, others of reunion, and some of truths that finally come to light. The conversation became more personal. Eleanor asked about my family, my parents, my childhood. I answered truthfully, speaking of my loving home and happy life. However, I noticed that Eleanor listened with unusual intensity, as if searching for something in my words. Her eyes narrowed slightly, as if she were analyzing every detail. Have you always lived in New York City, Valerie? She asked. I replied yes. That my whole life had been here. But her question made me think about the few memories I had of my early childhood. They were vague, like distant dreams. I had always assumed it was normal. But the way Eleanor looked at me, the way she phrased her questions, made me feel a pang of doubt. Was there something I didn't know? Some secret in my past that my parents had kept from me? The idea was unsettling, but curiosity pricked me, driven by the strange connection with Eleanor. She smiled, a smile that seemed to hold all the knowledge in the world. Life stories are fascinating. Don't you think, sometimes, what we think we know is just part of the truth? Her words were enigmatic, almost prophetic. I felt she was about to reveal something, but she paused as if gauging the right moment. The atmosphere at the table became tense, charged with a silent expectation. My friend's prank, which had been my biggest concern, now seemed trivial, insignificant. My mind raced, trying to connect the dots. Eleanor's familiarity, her questions, her comments about hidden truths. What was she trying to tell me? A shiver ran through my body, not of fear, but of strange anticipation. I felt I was on the verge of a discovery, of something that would change my perception of myself. The seed of doubt had been planted, and it was quickly germinating in my mind. The party, which had been a stage of humiliation, was transforming into a place of revelation. Eleanor leaned in slightly, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Valerie, I'd like to show you something. It's part of the Foundation's exhibition. She took a gala brochure from her purse, opening it to a specific page. It was a section dedicated to success stories, with old photos and touching testimonials. As her fingers glided across the page, she pointed to a black and white photograph. It was an image of a small girl, about 3 or 4 years old, with dark hair and large, Curious eyes. My heart pounded violently. The girl in the photo. She was identical to me as a child. She was an exact replica of the few childhood photos my parents kept. A shiver ran down my spine, chilling me to the bone. It couldn't be. It was impossible. My hands trembled as I took the brochure, my eyes fixed on the image, searching for any difference. But there was none. It was me, the same nose, the same shape of the lips, the same innocent expression. It was as if time had stopped and confronted me with my own past. Eleanor smiled, a smile I now understood was not enigmatic, but one of recognition. You recognize someone, don't you, Valerie? Her voice was soft, almost a murmur. The air in the hall grew thick, heavy, the music, the laughter. Everything faded. Only Eleanor, I, and that photograph that changed everything existed. My mind tried to process the information, but it was too much. Who was that girl? Why was her photo in an adoption brochure? And why was Eleanor showing it to me? My friend's prank, the humiliation I had felt, completely vanished. It seemed insignificant, trivial, given the magnitude of what was happening. Who is she? I managed to ask, my voice barely a whisper. My eyes didn't leave the photo, as if I feared it would disappear if I blinked. Eleanor took my hand. Her touch was warm and reassuring. That girl, Valerie, is you? And this success story, it's yours. Her voice was firm, filled with undeniable truth. My world turned upside down. The life I thought I knew, my history, my memories, everything crumbled before this revelation. Was I adopted? And Eleanor? Who was Eleanor in all of this? The puzzle pieces began to fit, painful but clear. Eleanor's familiarity, her questions, her comments about hidden truths, it all made sense now. The party was no longer a place of mockery, but the stage for my own truth, a truth that had been hidden, waiting for the perfect moment to come to light. Orchestrated by a woman who was now more than just an organizer. Eleanor squeezed my hand gently, her eyes filled with an emotion I couldn't fully grasp. Valerie, she began, her voice barely audible over the party's murmur. I am your birth mother. The phrase hit me like lightning. My mind refused to process it. My birth mother? Here at this party? It was insane. A plot twist my brain couldn't assimilate. I gave you up for adoption when you were very young. She continued, her voice trembling slightly. It was the hardest decision of my life, but I wanted to give you a better life, one I couldn't offer then. She explained that the foundation had been her connection to me. She had spent years searching for me, respecting the terms of the adoption, waiting for the right moment to contact me. Your friends, Eleanor said. They were contacted by the foundation. We told them it was a surprise for you, a special event. They just believed it was a harmless prank. The irony was overwhelming. Sophia and David, in their attempt to humiliate me, had become the messengers of the biggest truth of my life. The prank was a pretext, a smokescreen. They never imagined the true reason behind the invitation and Eleanor's presence at the gala. They thought it was funny to leave me alone at a gala, unaware they were leading me directly to my destiny. The humiliation I had felt at the beginning vanished, replaced by overwhelming astonishment. The most painful prank had become the greatest revelation of my life. I looked at Eleanor, the woman who had given me life. There was a mix of regret and hope in her eyes. It was the face of someone who had waited for this moment for decades. Why now? I asked, my voice hoarse. After so many years. Why tonight, at this party? I needed to understand the synchronicity, the coincidence. Eleanor smiled sadly. The foundation organizes these events to reunite families, and destiny, Valerie, has its own plans. Your friends unknowingly were part of it. I felt a wave of emotions, shock, confusion, but also a strange sense of completeness. A missing piece of my identity was revealing itself before my eyes. The party, which had been a stage of mockery, had transformed into a sacred place. The noise around me faded, and only we existed in that moment of revelation. The truth was stranger and more impactful than any fiction. My friends, with their cruel prank, had led me directly to my birth mother. Life had a twisted sense of humor. And in that instant, I knew that my response to Sophia and David's prank would be much bigger than they could ever have imagined. It would be a revelation, not a reaction. Eleanor explained that the foundation had contacted Sophia and David through a close contact tracing program. They only knew it was a surprise for me. We told them it was an important charity event, and that your presence was crucial for a special revelation, Eleanor said. They interpreted that revelation in their own way. They thought the surprise was leaving me alone, a cruel prank, yes, but harmless in their minds. They never imagined the true reason behind the invitation and Eleanor's presence at the gala. My friends had been unwitting pawns in a much larger game, orchestrated by destiny and a mother's relentless search. The irony was palpable, almost painful. I began to understand the extent of the manipulation, not just from my friends, but from circumstances. Life had led me down an unexpected path. using their cruelty as a catalyst. The humiliation I had felt at the beginning of the night transformed into a strange gratitude. Without their prank, I would never have met Eleanor, never would have discovered this part of my story. The irony of the situation was overwhelming. The most painful prank had become the greatest revelation. The initial pain dissolved before the magnitude of this new truth. Eleanor told me a little more about her life, her struggle to find me, her desire for me to know the truth. Her eyes shone with unshed tears, but also with immense hope. I always wanted you to know it wasn't a lack of love, she whispered. It was an act of love. So you could have the life you deserved. Her words deeply moved me. The party continued around us, oblivious to the storm of emotions unfolding at our small table. People laughed, danced, while my world was being redefined. I realized that the response I would give Sophia and David would not be one of anger, but of surprising calm. A calm born of a truth they could not comprehend. It wasn't about revenge, but about a revelation. A revelation that would not only leave them speechless, but also free me from their influence and their cruelty. The night, which had begun with a cruel prank, was turning into a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the unexpected pass of destiny. I was ready for the moment my friends returned, not with fear, but with a new strength, a new identity. The prank had failed, and I had gained so much more. The truth was my shield, my sword, and I was about to unsheath it, not to hurt, but to show them the power of a life they had underestimated. Just then, as if fate had summoned them, Sophia and David appeared. Their smiles were wide, almost radiant, filled with malicious anticipation. They approached our table, their eyes sparkling with mischief. "Valerie, how was the prank? Did you have fun alone at the adoption party?" Sophia asked with barely disguised mockery. David chuckled, his gaze sweeping my face, searching for signs of distress or humiliation. They were ready to savor my misery, to revel in their success. I looked at them, and an unexpected calm washed over me. I no longer felt anger nor shame, only a deep pity for their ignorance and cruelty. My response was ready. Eleanor, sitting beside me, slowly rose, her presence imposing and serene. She stood by my side like a wall of support, her eyes fixed on Sophia and David. Silence fell upon them, their smiles froze, and their eyes widened slightly as they noticed the tension in the air and the presence of the unknown woman. Sophia's gaze landed on Eleanor, then on me and back on Eleanor, trying to understand the connection. Confusion began to replace her initial mockery. "Who is she, Valerie?" David asked, his voice a little less confident. The atmosphere at the table had become heavy, charged with an imminent truth. I took a deep breath, savoring the moment. This wasn't a confrontation, it was a revelation, and they were the first in the audience. "Eleanor, I'd like to introduce you to Sophia and David," I said, my voice clear and firm. "Sophia, David, this is Eleanor Vance, the organizer of this wonderful gala." My friends' eyes darted between us, their discomfort growing. They didn't understand why I was so calm, or why Eleanor was by my side. This wasn't the scenario they had imagined. There were no tears, no pleas, no desperate reaction they expected, just a calmness that unsettled them. The prank had gone wrong, but not in the way they thought. It had failed in its goal of humiliating me, and instead, it had opened a door. The climax of their prank had become the prelude to my own truth, and I was about to unveil it, not to punish them, but to free myself. The party, which had been their stage, was now mine, and the audience, though small, was about to witness something completely unexpected. Valerie smiled, a smile that was not of defeat, but of power and revelation. It was a smile they didn't understand, and that unsettled them even more. "The prank was a resounding success," I said, my voice resonating with an authority they didn't recognize. "In fact, it helped me find something I have been searching for my entire life." Sophia and David looked at each other, confused, their brows furrowed, and their smiles had completely vanished. "It wasn't the reaction they expected, thanks to your prank of leaving me alone at this adoption party," I continued, my gaze fixed on them. "I had the opportunity to meet my birth mother, Eleanor." I gestured to Eleanor, who nodded with a warm, genuine smile, a smile that radiated love and hope. Her presence by my side was unwavering. Sophia and David paled, their faces drained of color, and their jaws dropped, their eyes widened in expressions of horror and confusion, mixed with disbelief. Your birth mother," Sophia stammered, her voice barely a whisper. The reality of my words hit them like a thunderclap. The nearby crowd, who had been observing the strange interaction, began to whisper. The unexpected turn of events was palpable, the tension in the air cutting. David took a step back as if he had been struck. "But it was just a prank, Valerie, we didn't know." His voice trailed off, unable to form a coherent excuse. "No, you didn't know," I replied calmly. "But destiny, or life, or whatever you want to call it, had other plans. For your prank, Eleanor placed a hand on my shoulder, a silent gesture of support. Her presence validated every word that came out of my mouth, making the truth undeniable. My friend's expression was a mixture of shock, shame, and belated understanding. They had mocked me, and unknowingly, they had given me the greatest gift. The party, which had been their stage to humiliate me, had become the backdrop for my own liberation. Their cruelty had transformed into my greatest blessing. My response was not a shout, nor an angry confrontation. It was a simple declaration of a truth that left them speechless, disarmed, and completely surprised, and in their eyes, I saw the recognition that the prank, in fact, had been on them, a prank by life, which had shown them the true power of a woman they underestimated. Sophia and David tried to stammer out excuses, broken words about not having known, about it just being a bad joke. But their voices lacked conviction and their gazes avoided mine. "Thank you for the invitation," I said firmly, cutting off their attempts at justification. "I will never forget this night. It has, without a doubt, been the most revealing of my life." There was no anger in my voice, only a quiet resolve. They were no longer my friends. They were simply people who, unintentionally, had opened a crucial door in my existence. I turned, taking Eleanor's hand. Her smile was radiant, filled with a happiness that couldn't be hidden. Together, we walked towards the exit of the hall. We left Sophia and David stunned, standing in the middle of the party, their faces pale and their expressions of disbelief. Their prank had backfired in the most unexpected way. The party, which had begun as a humiliation, had transformed into a symbol of my liberation. Every step I took away from them was a step towards a new beginning. As we exited the hall, the cool night air enveloped me. I didn't feel alone, but accompanied by a new connection, a new truth that empowered me. Eleanor and I talked for hours at a nearby cafe, sharing stories, filling in the gaps of a separated life. Every word was a thread weaving a new tapestry of my identity. The revelation of the party was just the beginning. There was much to learn, much to heal, but the foundation was there, an unbreakable connection with my birth mother. My friends were never the same. The truth of that night haunted them, and our friendship, if it ever truly was one, faded into the air. But I moved forward with Eleanor by my side. I discovered a strength and resilience I didn't know I possessed. The prank had been a catalyst, a trial by fire. Life, sometimes, uses the strangest paths to lead us to our destiny. And my destiny that night was not humiliation, but reunion and truth. And so, the party my friends planned as a mockery became the turning point of my life. A night where I lost some friends, but found a mother and myself. My response was not with words, but with the truth of my existence, a truth that surprised them, and that set me free forever.